These days it's equipped with all the technology and facilities that one might expect in a modern broadcasting station, but what we know as South Jumpers Bastion has a long and storied past. And to get to the roots of it, we have to dig deep into Gibraltar's history, close to 500 years in fact.
So we have to go back to the 16th century, so what we now know as South Jumpers Bastion. During the Spanish period in 1540, there was a very serious attack on Gibraltar by Turkish pirates, and then there was a push to really beef up and update Gibraltar's defences. There were medieval defences and there was a need to really beef them up. And here there was sort of like a defensive platform located. It wasn't a fully fledged bastion, but there was a platform. We can see it in a map of Gibraltar, which was drawn up in 1627 by an engineer named Luis Bravo de Acuña. He draws it, and you actually see the original sort of structure here. Now, of course, this continues in use during the British period. After 1704, Gibraltar gets captured by an Anglo-Dutch fleet and subsequently gets integrated into, it becomes part of the UK, a British domain. It is renamed Jumpers Bastion, the reason being that during the assault in 1704, there was a captain named Jumper. Según contaban, he was believed to be one of the first British officers to have disembarked, y por eso he had the honor of having what became North and South Jumpers Bastion named after him. Now, there was more rebuilding taking place. Towards the later 18th century, you have an actual bastion built on what was the Spanish platform, and so that is really when you get the larger, more substantial building taking place on the site. Now, this rebuilding effort does not stop. Of course, Gibraltar's military defences keep on being upgraded and evolved. In the early 19th century, there are recommendations to further update and upgrade the defences, and that is when we have a more substantial changes taking place here on the site, and it continues being used by the military. Really, it is until just after the Second World War.
In a significant departure from its military usage, several Gibraltarian families made this place their home when they returned to the Rock after the evacuation. For years it was used as accommodation as Gibraltar grew its housing stock post-war, although its more recent history was rather less illustrious than what came before and after.
It's used as that for a number of years, and eventually the building does get used for other purposes, and it gets sadly abandoned towards the later 20th century. And I mean, yo me acuerdo de chicos, most of you remember, this was just basically a dump. It was flooded. Me recordaba mucho. I'm a big fan of Star Wars, and it reminded me of the swamp in Dagobah in episode 5 when they go to see Yoda. I mean, lo que faltaba era Yoda dando vuelta por aquí. Pero it was literally a swamp. You have like shopping trolleys and water everywhere. And so thankfully the building was recently restored and has been given a new lease of life, I think.
South Jumpers Bastion opens a new chapter, but still maintains a firm hold on its link to the past. As with many other projects locally, great care was taken to maintain as much of the existing structure as possible for all the historical value this provides.
I mean, I think it's absolutely essential to keep the heritage, especially with the old buildings. You have to keep, I think, as much as you can. Yes, of course, we do. There is progress, but it doesn't mean it has to come at the expense of our historic structures. I mean, this is, I think, a good example. You don't have to completely gut an old building or tear it down in order to repurpose it. And I think it is absolutely essential for our history, the historical record, as well as to maintain, I think, the character of the cityscape as such, to I think, really preserve as much as we can.